Hi, it's Professor Kathy here, the horror professor. So the School of Screams has teamed up with horror miser Monty G for Women in Horror. So I am so excited about this discussion. I hope you enjoy it.
Y'all ready for this? Once again, it is me, the horror miser, Monty G. Hey, horror fans! Once again, it is me, the horror miser, Monty G. Welcome to another year of Women in Horror, where I celebrate the contribution women have done in the genre of horror. And I actually have a very, very special guest, as you can see her right now to my right. She is Professor Kathy. Say hello, Kathy.
Hi everybody. So happy to be here.
Now, Kathy is a very interesting person here. She actually teaches a course in college about horror films. So let's give a little bit about what your class is before we actually do a deep dive later on in the discussion.
Great. Yeah, so I'll share a little bit. So I really was starting to think about, the themes that we're seeing coming out in more modern horror, right? Where a lot of the social political themes might be more obvious. And it was interesting listening to discussions where people felt like that was something new, that social politics hadn't been in horror. So really going back into the history and understanding that horror has always been political, that wanted me to really teach and talk about and do a deep dive with people, have these critical discussions, really look at all the themes. And when you look for it, there are so many themes to talk about. So it's very exciting. So I pitched it to my college. There was a lot of interest, excitement, and the class is now full. And then that got me thinking, I want to offer this for anybody, not just kids who are at my school. So I have the online course that is available for anybody to take and take at any point in time and have access for 6 months. So I created it for my college, but then there's also an online version for everybody. So just very exciting. I really want to have as many discussions as possible about this stuff.
Yes. And what I'll probably do is we'll link that in the description box below.
Great.
But let's get started, because obviously you must be into horror to want to teach a horror class.
Yes.
So my first question to you is, because you know how it is. You're a woman. You are probably a little girl. You know what I mean? Why in the world would you, even especially a black girl, want to get excited and get into a genre like horror? It's not supposed to be for us, or not supposed to be for black. So what drew you into horror in the first place?
So So to think about that, I think about, so I'm a child of the 80s, and the 80s was a different time. So I was watching horror movies probably younger than would be recommended today. And I was hooked from the very beginning. I just loved it. It was exciting. It was different. I liked that feeling of being afraid and just that whole piece to it. And then it was very special, kind of speaking of, being a Black woman, having that relationship with my cousins and having cousins who are around the same age. That then became something that we enjoyed together, like being scared together, renting movies, going to the horror section at Blockbuster or whatever, a video store that we would go to. So it became a whole thing. So I had also within family a community, and I think that really helped. And then obviously I've broadened my community over time, but I think I was watching it pretty early. I loved it. I was intrigued. And, as somebody who studies psychology, I think I was always interested in the psychology of fear. I think even from that young age, which is why I do what I do now. I think I always saw that, like, why does this make me scared? Like, why does it evoke these feelings? I didn't have that language at that time, but I think I was really connecting to that now that I look back.
Yes. What was the actual first horror film that you saw?
So that is something for years I have tried to figure out which one it was, but this is why I say I was watching it so much that it was so integrated. It's kind of like, well, when was the first time you watched Sesame Street? Like, I don't know. I was just always watching it. It was just always
Yeah, because I can't answer that. I'm a child from the 70s.
yes, right. But when I think about those first movies, I don't know the exact one, but I think about The Gate, The Howling, and
Mm.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2, because I remember I saw that when it came out on HBO. So those three were around the first, and I think those is my gateway movies to horror. So the exact one, hard to say, but those are the ones I kind of think of that I remember kind of first really getting into it, especially The Gate. I love when that came on TV. Very, very, very exciting. So yeah, those would be the ones. So the group of movies, I say, not just one.
Yeah, I actually saw The Gate when it came to theaters. As you probably understand, being a child from the 70s, I have a very vast experience of seeing several films that came out during the 70s, such as
Yeah.
The Exorcist and Jaws in the theater.
Yes. Wow. I can't even imagine. And seeing it at that time, like I've seen some of those movies because, they bring them back these
Hmm.
days. But to see it at that time is so special in the theater with people seeing all that excitement. Yes.
Yeah, so I have firsthand knowledge of when The Exorcist first came in the theaters and when Jaws
Wow.
first came in the
Woo.
theaters. Yeah, in the theaters and The Exorcist, seeing people skits out and
Yes.
scream bloody
Yes.
murder when Reagan
Yes.
turns her head or when she masturbates with the cross. And
Yes.
even though she didn't do spider walk, but all the crazy stuff people threw up, people ran out, people screamed and
Yes.
yelled and hollered. Yeah, yeah. So and
Yes.
the lines were that long.
I know. I've heard so many stories of when that first was out in the theater. So that's
Yeah, 'cause
incredible to have been part of
yeah,
that. Yes.
yeah, because you do have to understand there was no social media, there was no internet, no
No.
nothing back during the
Right.
70s. It was simply
Yes.
word of mouth, and
That's it.
everyone would come up to you and say, "Yo, man, did you see The Exorcist? Man, that shit's crazy, man. I've never seen any crap." Because you have to understand, at that particular time, the only true scary movie that came out was Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Right.
And
That's right. Yes.
you really
Yep.
never saw a film that not
Yep.
violent, but that scary and that powerful and that terrifying
Yes.
until The Exorcist came out. You know,
Absolutely. Right. Yes. Yeah.
uh, yeah, but you saw some very good, interesting horror films. The Gate, The Howling. What about
Yeah.
that transformation scene?
Yes, I think that again, as a kid, seeing something like that, and I think I've always, and I still do this when I watch movies, although I try to immerse myself. But even as a kid, I had that kind of logical set of like, okay, let me think about how did they do that? What did they use? Like, how did that? So I was always interested in special effects. Like, even think about like The Fly with Jeff
Mm,
Goldblum kind of going around, and I know now that they had like a rotating room. As a kid, I was like, how did they do
yeah.
that? How did they
Mm.
film that? How did he? So I was always kind of doing some type of analysis, even as a kid, and I thought it was so cool, and I still think it's pretty cool now. Yeah.
Yeah, because they used that same special effect when
Yes.
Alice was killed in the Nightmare on Elm Street when she was growing up
Exactly. The
in the
same
fall. They used
rotating.
the
Yes.
same
Right.
rotating room. Yes, yes,
That's it.
yeah.
Yep.
So it's a very good, interesting first things of horror. You were very lucky that you actually had a nice group of friends
Yes.
and family that were into horror. I think it just got more into it because you're a child and you're supposed to be
Hmm.
not seeing these things, but you're
Right.
interested. Probably the same thing that got me into
Ah.
horror. For
Uh-huh.
me, it was Universal Monsters, the Hammer Horror,
Yes. Yes.
Christopher Lee, and the Hammer Horror
Yes.
series. That's what got me into horror. And my mother always thought that I would outgrew it because she actually told me she did not want me to see The Exorcist because it was too scary. So me and my friends snuck and go saw it.
Yes. That's what you had to do. I did a couple of sneaking into movie theaters myself. Yes. And you know what I did that with was with Interview with the Vampire. I forget
Ooh.
how old I was exactly. I think I was like 12, 11, 12. And I
Mhm.
ended up being interviewed by the local news. And they
Ooh.
used that clip of me. So I was too young to be seeing it. But again, it was a different time. But they asked, like, how did you feel about the gore that you saw? And all the clip was of me on the news was, I loved it. That was me at 12 years old on the local news.
I can I can imagine this. Look, what's this 12-year-old girl talking about? She loves gore. And especially at
Yes.
that time, people might think there was something wrong with you
I
because
know.
unfortunately, all my friends thought there was something wrong with me. They
Yes,
said,
because
"Money,
that's
money."
the view, right? Why could
Uh,
you like that? What's wrong? Right, that's so true that people have that perception. Yes,
mhm.
yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
"Money, gee, why you like all that shit? That shit's crazy.
Yes.
I can't get. I don't see how you like that stuff." I said, "Dude, man, I just love it, man."
Yes,
I
it's
said, "It's
great,
not
yeah.
real."
And that's what I always say. I feel like people have made me feel bad, the same thing that I like
Mm,
it, but I'm thinking like, why are you so afraid of something it's like picture on a screen? Like it's gonna evoke feelings, but it's also not actually happening. And I have
uh,
said, although we talk about social politics in the course, what happens in real life is far more terrifying sometimes
mhm.
than what we see on the screen. So when we think about that, I think it's a nice place to be able to feel fear and have it be contained and not have to worry about it actually coming true. But real life is a little bit different. Yeah. Yep. Hmm.
Okay. All right. So my next question is, what are your thoughts regarding how women have been treated in horror films? I would say, from the damsel in distress to how women are portrayed in horror films now.
Yeah. So part of how I'm viewing this again from the social political lens is that horror is has always reflected how we view different identities, races, different things, all of that stuff. It's reflecting that at any time. So when we see the damsel in distress and when we see those roles playing out in earlier horror, that's just reflecting the prevalent view of women at the time. And I think we also know that there are a lot of male directors. So obviously then we have it coming from that male lens as well. So when I look back on that, I definitely see that as being a function of the time. And then I also think that, it's not that the women were weak, which I think can be part of that view. It's just that they didn't have agency. Right. And I think that's what we certainly see for the women who were actually living during that time as well, is that it's not that they didn't have power, well, they didn't have power. It's not that they were weak and they really couldn't fight against the monsters or do what they needed to do. They just didn't have the agency and the ability to do that because of the things, the barriers that got in the way, the social barriers. So I
Mhm.
love what we're doing now. We have the revenge movies and we have movies like Becky. She's fighting back against things. I think about like the Ready or Not movies. So we see people, or I should say specifically women, really stepping up and showing what they're capable of doing. And that again is a reflection of what we have going on now, how we're talking more about that. Women are feeling empowered to do that and we're able to kind of do things a little bit differently. So I think it's different because we are different. So horror is evolving with us. It's following what we have going on. So it's making sense that we're seeing a lot more of those movies now. It's a beautiful thing, I think.
Oh yeah, I have really become fascinated by how women have been portrayed in horror films. One of the prime examples that I do give is when you take a look at 1939's King Kong and Fay Wray's Anne Downing, as opposed to Peter Jackson's King Kong with Naomi
Mm,
Scott's version of Anne Downing. They're the
mm,
same character, but you can see the differences
yes.
between that time period where Fay Ray screams and yells and she has to be saved by Kong or she has to be saved by the man. But
Yes.
in Naomi Scott's version of the King character, she actually fights Kong. She
Mhm.
doesn't get I mean obviously she's scared
Yep.
of Kong because he's a big gorilla, but she fights Kong. She even pisses Kong off.
Yes.
She pisses Kong off, but Kong doesn't attack her. But you can see the differences, even though the time period is almost basically the same, but her
Right.
character is more demanding. She's not weak. She's not
Yes.
helpless. I mean,
Yeah.
even though Kong had to save her from the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it's just how different Peter Jackson put Anne Downs' character as we saw in 1939's King Kong.
So that's exactly it. We take the
Mm,
same movie and put it in a different time, in a different social context, and it's going
mm,
to play out differently. That's exactly it. Right. So I think when we see women in horror for the past, it was reflecting how we view things, what was the prevalent view, and what was the dominant view
mm.
at the time. Right. Hmm.
I mean, and another perfect example, which I actually find surprising when you look at the original Black Christmas film, even
Another one.
Elizabeth Hussey's character,
Yes.
no, even though she's the final girl in this particular one, we'll talk about final girls later,
Yeah.
but she's not depending upon her boyfriend. She doesn't want to be. She wants
Mm,
to finish school, and
right.
then we take a look at Margaret. We look at Margaret Kidder's character. She's assertive.
Yes.
She takes nothing away. She's
Yes.
competitive, and I like the fact that it was reflecting of the women's movement during the
I
70s.
was gonna say it would put it right around that. Yes, exactly. That timing, right. Yep, yep. That's it.
Now, were you aware of the this grassroots organization called Women in Horror?
I was not. I mean, I am so excited to know something like that exists. I can't believe. I mean, I'm trying to get more into who's having these conversations and all of that. So I was not aware, but I am so happy that it exists, that we're talking about it. We need to talk about it more. I think it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I love to know now that it exists. Yes, it's
Yeah, 'cause
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I discovered the website probably right either during the pandemic or prior to the
Um,
pandemic, and I myself, that's pretty interesting. It's like it's
yeah,
about time women get their rewards of what they contributed to the horror film because I've always
absolutely.
said without women, I don't know where the horror genre would be because
Right.
women make a very fine, I guess you could say, a fine example as far as how horror films go.
Right.
She can
Mhm.
be the damsel in distress. She can actually be the. We actually had some good women who were the bad guys in the horror film.
Yes, the killers,
And
the monsters, yes, yeah,
mhm, you
mhm,
know, and
yeah.
that's and when I saw that, and I saw the website, and I said to myself, you know what, I should be able to do this. So at first, it was done in February, but because they didn't want to compete with Black History Month, they changed it to March.
Okay, good to
In
know,
March,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what I did at first was say, I'm gonna go ahead and start celebrating women in horror. So I
mhm.
went on ahead and what I did the first time was I talked about Black Final Girls because a lot of people don't
Ooh,
know that there are some
beautiful.
Black Final Girls.
Yes, yes, gotta talk
And
about that, right.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
definitely did that for the first time, and then after that, I went on ahead and started interviewing, mainly women that have horror YouTube channels, and then I've also reached out to authors, person like yourself, podcasts, any type of thing that women have done in horror films, so
mhm.
in the horror genre.
Yes, I think right. I hope that that continues to grow and keeps going because I don't think that women get the credit for all that they've done to help the genre. So I think right these are critical conversations. And I know we'll talk about maybe female directors and things like that. I think it helps the whole genre for us to talk about that and make sure women are getting the respect moving forward that they
Mm,
deserve. Yes, yes.
yes. How do you feel about the evolution of the final girl trope in horror films?
Mhm. So it's interesting because I think about the fact that final girls, at least at certain points in time, we could talk about different points in time because it can be different, but certain points in time, it was really about the final girl being the good girl. And she
Mm,
was surviving by being good, by playing by the patriarchal rules. Right. So that's what's really interesting. And I think what we're seeing now is that it can be any woman. She doesn't have to play by rules. And when she's fighting back, she's fighting the system almost literally. So I think again, of like ready or not, like she's fighting, kind of the wealthy elite. Like so she's literally taking on the system. So I think
mm,
it's shifted in terms of who gets to be a final girl. And again, that representing how we feel about how we had felt about women, but this is also where we see religious kind of feelings and thoughts integrating itself into horror as we think about like who dies, right? So it was in the earlier days, and now we make fun of it. It would be if you've had sex, if
mm.
you've done this, if you were like too sexualized as a woman, we knew that, well, okay, yep, she's gonna die,
Oh,
right? But
she's gonna die.
that's playing out that whole view that you were too sinful to be able to survive, but someone who's not doing what you're doing, they're okay, they're good. So I think we're seeing that as representing the way that religion had integrated itself into our culture, and then it started to play out in the horror movies. Now we make fun of it, but that was something I think that really does reflect a certain perspective at that time, but that's shifting. And I love that anyone now can be a final girl. There's no rules. It can be a black woman, right?
Oh
We
yes.
wouldn't have been a black woman before, right? Exactly. So that's huge. I mean, that's a big one.
I know. Now I'm going to test your knowledge because you are a professor.
Oh no. Oh, okay. I don't know
Who do you think is the actual first black final girl?
Oh, the first.
Yes.
Oh, that's a hard one. Because I know, right? Okay, the first. Because I know it's not exactly. That's a really hard one. I don't know who the first. Because I feel like I would think maybe something more recent, but I feel like there's an example further back. Ooh, okay, so I'll need you to spoil it. I'm okay if I failed, but I would love to know.
That's okay. Normally, most people will probably think of Jada Pinkett from Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Yes.
She
Okay.
actually, she's actually literally the first Black final girl. When you look at the history of horror, although some people might think there was a film that I can't remember it, but there was a film that came out during the '70s. Some people might say that she was the actual Black final girl, but
Ah,
unfortunately, that trope did not come into play until now. So actually, Jada Pinkett was the
oh, so it is her.
I think her name was
Okay.
Geraldine, and
That's
Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. And believe it or not,
yes.
this is funny. I took right before my wife Kelly became my wife. That was our first date. Our first date. I took her to a
Okay.
horror movie. I took her to a horror movie. Now keep in mind, she's not into horror.
Okay. But I mean, given your love for it, you kind of had to see how does this go? Right. Given how much you like it, I think that kind of makes sense. Yes.
Uh, yeah, but speaking of Black Final Girls,
Mm.
I think now, I mean, even though
Mm.
because I think you had Jada Pinkett Smith, you had Santa, I can't remember her last name, Santa Lathan from Alien versus Predator.
Yes. Oh,
Uh,
yes. Oh, that's right. I watched that. Yes, exactly. 2 years ago. That's right. Yes, I was remembering that. Yep.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, but now
Yep.
we're getting to have more Black Final Girls. So, what do you
Yes.
think as far as are finally Black women finally getting the respect that they deserve in horror films?
So I would say visibility, yes. Respect, probably not. And I
Hmm.
say that because, again, horror is reflecting what we have going on. And if you ask me in society, are we getting the respect that we are just deserving of? I would say no. And I think that is still playing out in that setting in those movies in terms of who gets roles and how many of these movies are being made, what scripts are accepted. So I think visibility, yes. So have we come a long way? Yes. And then is there more that we need to do? Yes. So I would say visibility, absolutely. But I think what can happen with that is that you might have one Black woman does an incredible job. People love it. They love the role. And it becomes, in a good way, we do want it to be about her. But then
Hmm.
that good feeling about her doing that in horror might not translate to Black women in horror in general. It might just be contained to this role, this actress, this movie. That's it. So I don't see maybe that kind of translating openly where everyone's saying like, "Oh, we want more of this." Black women do such a good job. I don't know outside of certain spaces that I've really heard that. So I
Hmm.
think the visibility, respect, I think we're still working on that. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I saw Lupita Nyong'o in
Ah,
a,
yes.
a quiet place day one, and the performance
Yes.
that she gave in that particular film was fantastic. And
Yes.
she's actually been in a few horror films.
Oh, that's
There's
right. She had a couple. Right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think one of the best. I think it's probably I can't remember the name of the horror film, but she plays a school teacher
I
for
was trying to
all.
I can picture the cover art of that where she's, like, kind of dancing midair. What was it?
Yeah, yeah,
Zombies? I forget what the threat
yeah,
was or
the
something.
kids
Yes,
the
the
kids turned
kids.
out to be zombies, and I actually
That
thought she
was
actually did a good
it.
job in that particular role, and then she was
Yes,
fantastic. But then she's
yes,
such a great actress.
yes,
In
right,
acting,
right.
and we have other black female stars that are actually doing pretty good
Mhm.
in horror films now,
Yes,
and I think
yes.
it's becoming more.
We're
I
getting
say
there, right,
we're
yes,
getting
yeah,
there.
So it's a beautiful thing to see. I just want it to continue, to keep
Mm,
going for people, and then for Black girls and Black women to see that represented, draw more fans to the genre, because we know representation matters. So seeing yourself in these characters, these final girls, is really special. It's empowering. So I don't know if I had that I can think of when I was a kid, to see a Black woman taking on a monster and doing all of
mhm.
that stuff. But it has a lot of power to see that strength and see it represented on the screen. So I'm hoping for more. Exactly. We keep going with it.
That kind of reminds me of a film I saw a couple years ago. Do you ever see the film called The Black Woman and the Black Girl and the Monster?
Yes, yes, I remember that one. Yes, yes, that's
It was
right. Yes,
interesting take on the Frankenstein on the film.
yes,
I thought the film was okay. I think
yeah,
it was really written well. I did
mhm,
like the performance of the actress that played the scientist. She
yes,
was obsessed, just like Victor Frankenstein was obsessed with trying to fix or cure death. And I
right.
like seeing that from a different perspective as
This,
opposed
and
to
that
not.
social political context was amazing. So when I think about the movie like that, I love the movie. I thought was okay, but when I highlight that part of it, like, that is
Mhm.
incredible. Taking Frankenstein to the hood, like, that is amazing. I love
Yeah, it's
it.
basically what it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, my next question is, how do you feel women that were disrespected or objectified during the early slasher films during the 80s with all that gratuitous nudity? It seems
Mm.
like during the 80s, we
Yep.
couldn't see a slasher film without a woman showing her breasts or behind or even full frontal nudity. It just like
Mhm.
it had nothing to do with the script.
Right. Oh,
And
nothing at all. Right.
it had to do nothing.
Mhm.
Now, how do you feel that? Do you feel as though women were being exploited during that time period?
So yes, that's an interesting question, and I would say yes, and I think the why really matters. So why at that time was that happening? That's always, because obviously I'm into analysis. So it's like the yes, but
Mhm,
why at that particular time were we seeing that? And again, I really think it is being about that context that we were in, and those 80s slashers, like, literally embodying the male gaze, right?
mhm.
And then those male directors kind of writing it, knowing that that they're kind of writing it for guys and saying, like, well, here's what I would want to see and here's what you're going to see. So I think we have it coming from that framework. So from that place, it kind of makes sense, whether or not they were realizing what they were doing and kind of recreating that whole idea of things. And I think it goes back to the sexuality piece too, because if we think about, those were the women in those movies who were killed off, right?
Mhm.
So that makes sense. So you can show her body, you can objectify her, and then she's going to die because, again, she's a bad person. That's the whole idea. So it's okay. So I think it's just, again, it's really reflecting all of that. So I think we have male directors, and we just have a certain time, and then them writing it for, thinking that it was, okay, well, guys are going to go see this, they're going to want to see that, and not thinking about the bigger implications of that. So I think, again, it's part of a social context of the time, and then it became a thing. And then it
Yeah,
was just a thing, and then everyone had to repeat it, and then it kind of took on a life of its own.
yeah.
Yes.
Because I think when it came during the 80s, I think a lot of directors, especially male directors, basically were marketed for obviously adolescent, teenage boys or young men.
Yes,
Well, we know
exactly.
that they're going to come see this particular film, so we gotta have this, gotta have that.
Yep.
Let's do this, even though it had nothing to do with the plot.
Right. Exactly. Right. Because they knew their what their audience, or they were telling their audience, here's what you're gonna want to see. And then it worked, right? And these
Mm.
films did okay, or at least well enough, and some did really well. So it just kept that going. And again, then became its own thing, right? Not knowing that there were many people who were watching horror movies of many genders. Yes, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
One of the examples I give when it comes to something like this, you ever see
Mhm.
Jennifer's Body?
Yes, a great example of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
example is that
yes. Yeah.
a poor marketing strategy because for some reason the movie studios wanted to have teenage boys fawn
Yes.
over Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried and making out for a 10-minute makeout scene.
Right, right, right.
Really, that was not the film was about two hot girls kissing. It was
Nope.
about two good friends who really weren't friends. You know, Nene and Jennifer actually were not true friends, and that was the whole
Mhm.
film was about. And I thought it was unfortunately the film, which one of Megan Fox's one of the few films I actually thought Megan Fox was good in.
Mhm.
Good in, but it was simply about their friendship and the fact that they really didn't know each other that well at all. And that was the whole film was about, not about them having a hot scene,
Mhm.
a hot scene for 10 minutes.
But that was what was used, right? Because I think that
Mhm.
was a female director for that one. So I think, right, she wanted something like, and she did something different, but then marketing takes over and it's
Mhm.
considering who they think is going to go see it, and that changes it. But I love that it's become a cult classic and that it's getting the respect now that maybe people didn't understand exactly at that
Yeah,
time.
because
Right.
yeah, because Diablo Cody, who wrote the film, she was not happy of the fact that when they marketed the film, they had Megan Fox in a schoolgirl outfit, you know,
Right.
and it's like that's
Mhm.
not what this movie is about. It's not about a hot girl.
Yes, there's so many layers to that movie, exactly, and that's actually one that I have on the list of ones to discuss in the online horror course because there's a lot happening in
Mhm.
that one. Yep, so good example.
I
Mhm.
see. What are your thoughts on the rape revenge films? Do you think that a male director can make them faithfully, or do you think a female director can make those films faithfully?
Yeah, so that's yes, that's a harder one. I would say it is possible for a male director to do it, but I think it really comes down to what perspective are they taking. So when we see a lot of these movies, a lot of them are really good, but it becomes more about the male pain and what's going on with the man versus the woman's kind of lens and her subjectivity. So I think and I don't, so it's really about the intent. And I think those male directors have to ask themselves, what story am I trying to tell and from whose perspective?
Mhm.
So it doesn't automatically be the male perspective. And this is how this stuff works, just in terms of psychology, is that, you're just writing it. You're not thinking about your biases. You're not always thinking about how you're looking at it from your particular lens. But I think that's what can happen automatically unless there's critical thought or people in the room to ask questions or to challenge. So I would say it's possible, but it takes a lot of critical thought and intention and really that question of whose perspective is it being written from and all of that. So I think that's really what it comes down to. So possible, yeah, I would say.
I
Mhm.
see. Yeah, because yeah, I actually find it fascinating when I see films like Irreversible, which was directed by
Mm.
a man. And of course, we have that traumatic scene that takes place at the end of the film, which is actually the beginning part, because they did it
Mm.
backwards. And
Right.
the actress in the film actually told the male director, "No, let's make the scene even more brutal than it is because we have to convey the fact that
Yes.
why did her friend beat the crap out of those two men at the
Mm.
beginning, was at the end of the film, was at the beginning of the film, and they have to show that how brutally they SA'd her because
Right.
she wanted to make that part one of the reasons why, look, you did this to my friend, I'm gonna kick your ass, and that's basically
Mhm.
why he said, no, let's make it more brutal. So I
Wow.
really give the actress credit for doing that because at that point I didn't
Yes.
know. I didn't
Right.
I didn't
Right.
know.
So I think if we have people who are able to provide input and do
Mhm.
all of that and give their perspective, it's being listened to because it's really about voices. To me, if you're telling a story of somebody and you don't have that identity, you have to incorporate those voices at a minimum. So it's only if that's not happening that I think it becomes problematic. If it is, I think it can be done well.
Who is your favorite final girl and why?
Yes. So I'm going to have to say Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street, although I know it's complicated because she dies in part three. Spoiler alert if y'all haven't seen it by now. Um, but Nightmare on Elm Street is so critical to me. It's my favorite horror series. Like, that's what got me into studying psychology. When I went to college, like, again, like Freddy Krueger, that whole thing, that all the fear, all of that. So I think Nightmare on Elm Street is such a special series to me. So Nancy, I think is definitely that person for me. And I think I relate to her, or related to her, maybe still do. She was naive, maybe unassuming, but when it was time to get stuff done, she got it done. I very much relate to that. Like, I might not seem like, oh, like I'm and going to take care of things, but if something needs to be done, it's going to happen. So I appreciated what I'll call that quiet strength that she displayed. And then although she does die in part 3, I mean, she was dying in that moment because of the love for her father. And I think that's a beautiful thing because, that's what happens when she dies. She thinks she's seeing her father, and she had done so much to educate the Elm Street kids, to give them the tools that they needed to be able to try to survive after she was gone. So it's easily Nancy for me, just because I love Nightmare on Elm Street. Yes.
Yeah. We're kindred souls because Freddy Krueger is my favorite when it comes to the slasher fan. I'm a huge Freddy Krueger fan.
Yes.
I actually met Robert Englund in person last year at 2 years ago at Monster Mania convention.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So I met him, it's probably been a couple years, maybe over 5 years ago. And the first time I had seen him at a convention, I was so nervous to meet him. I almost had a panic attack, and I actually didn't meet him that year. Like, I was so like, oh my God, like I can't even explain that feeling. And so the next time he was there, I was able to see him, so nervous, and he held my hand and called me a Fredette. And I will always say that was the best day of my life. I told my cousin was with me. I said, I can die now. Like, what else is there to do in life? I have met him and he held my hand. I'm done. I'm done. Like, that's it. That's life.
Because all the people I met in horror, whether it's YouTubers, I actually interviewed Deborah Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 5. I've interviewed her 2 times. I met Robert Englund, met a couple of other people. They're all very friendly.
Yes,
I mean, they really, truly love their fans.
Yes.
And he was very gracious. We shook hands. We took the picture. He wished me goodbye. He said good luck. He also loved my shirt because I had the Freddie Jason shirt on.
Nice. Yes. Yes. And that's what I love about the horror genre, particularly around the people, the actors and actresses who are in it. Like, again, like you're saying, like, you see that love for the fans. It's really a community. I know other genres probably have that to some degree, but I really feel like in horror, we have something very special when it comes to that relationship between those people doing the movies and us as fans. So I think that's something very special. That other genres might not have in the same way.
Okay. All right. Now, so normally this is when I talk to people who have YouTube channels, I ask them, how did you create your YouTube? But for you,
yes.
I want to ask, how did you create this horror course? What led you to create this horror course?
Yeah, so that really came about kind of when we think about Jordan Peele's movies, right? So like Get Out in particular. So I'm obviously in a lot of online horror spaces, and there was so much conversation about, this whole idea of woke. So, horror movies are so woke these days and all of that. And it was kind of getting annoying to have to go into the comments and provide history and say, horror has always been political. If you don't notice, you have not been paying attention. So I just got tired of saying that. And I was like, I'm going to do more about it. I'm going to educate people. I'm going to come with the receipts. I'm going to come with the clips. I'm going to do everything that I can to show that it has always been in there. It's just the way that we're talking about it might have shifted, but it's always reflected our societal fears or worries or what we have going on. So I think that's it. And just being a horror fan and now being in a professor role, I think it just made sense. And I pitched it. I wasn't sure what the school was going to say. And they said yes. And the students are excited for it. So I think these are the conversations that are so important to have. And I'm sure there are other people doing something similar, but I really feel like my online horror course is something special because it's very particular. It's not just horror, it's a social political take on it. So special in that way, special for me as a Black woman to do it, special that it's available online for anybody. You don't have to enroll in college. You just sign up from the link. So I think it's something truly special. So I saw conversations people were having and I was like, people need some education. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that on.
It's funny that you mentioned that because unfortunately now It seems, especially on YouTube, we have these what we call well, I've been hearing it lately. It's called chud or drifters, or the anti-woke nitwits,
Yes.
as I
Yes.
call them, who complain
Yes.
about anything because they don't like either girl bosses or a
Right.
black female lead or a black male lead
Mhm.
or a
Mhm.
gay or a
Yes.
gay person or a lesbian person,
Yes.
and they say that's woke. I say, wait a minute,
Yes.
that's
There we
that's
go.
not what woke means anyway. If you
I
actually look
know. That's the whole thing. The word has like linguistically, it's interesting how the word's taken on whole new meaning.
I know
The
that's
difference
not
in
what
different.
woke is, you nitwit.
I know, right?
I'm trying to be nice.
Yes. So I
It's
want a space where people, who are hearing that and like, no, that's not true, where they can come. And I want to build community around this where people can talk about that, don't have to feel like they're shut down. No, we're going to dig into it and look at all the complications and all of that stuff. So I really want to build that community where people can have those conversations and not be shut down and have those comments. Yeah.
I see. What horror movies do you actually show to your students there?
So we go over, oh, there's so many. So I have it set up that I give recommendations and people will watch it and then we'll come and discuss it. But there's think of like People Under the Stairs is a
Hmm.
really good example. On the surface, it seems like it's just monsters who live under the stairs and just a weird family, but it's about housing exploitation, gentrification, and I
Hmm.
love and Wes Craven was so smart, and people again watch it and they think it's just about monsters, but the whole idea is that it's not the people under the stairs that are the monsters. It's the people above the stairs with power that are the monsters. So we're meant to think it's the people down there, but then we see them and they're actually quite lovely. I mean, they're a little, maybe messy or they're dirty, but they're still nice people. And we're meant to. So I think that's showing something really critical too, where we're meant to look at certain people and be like, oh, you're the problem, not
Hmm.
recognizing it's the other people that are truly the problem. And they're just trying to have us think. I mean, we're seeing that play out very much in today. That would be a perfect example of what we talk about. They Live being very obvious with it, but that's a really good one. Jennifer's Body is on that list. There's just so
Hmm.
many because Rosemary's Baby. I think about gender, all of that stuff. Like yeah. So I have for each week, there's kind of a particular theme, and then I list out here are the movies that you would consider watching as part of that. People can come into the discussion board. And then I also give assignments, which is amazing. So I have a couple of assignments. So each week you can do a reflection, a little paper. If certain people want to sign up for the higher level of the course, I will actually give it a grade and edit it and review it as I do as a professor. So if somebody's interested in really getting critical feedback from me, I do offer that. And at that higher level, people can also get a Zoom with me so we can talk about it. We can have a Zoom session and talk all these things out. So I've got the movie recommendations, I have assignments, and then an opportunity to meet with me. So I try to, and then the discussion board. So my hope is that we get a nice community and people can start to build community here in the online course talking about it. So all very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It's about time we have some positivity with all
Yes,
the
I know.
because
I
I
know. We
think
need it.
unfortunately, most of the time when I look at YouTube and I see it seems like either YouTube or even social media, it seems like we're seeing more of the rage bait or the negativity and
Yes.
all this other stuff. I know
Yes.
it's like we need to have if you're going to criticize. You should have
Right.
legitimate criticism when it comes to films, not because oh no,
Right.
it's a black man or it's a black woman or it's a
Right.
gay person or it's a
That's not
lesbian.
critical thought.
That's
Exactly.
not it's not true criticism.
Right.
Not when it comes to criticizing.
Mhm.
You can
Yep.
say I don't like the film because the character is written poorly. I don't like that because the film would look
Yes.
terrible. That's good. That's criticism. We can actually talk about that. We
Yes,
can
we
actually
can work
have a
with it.
discussion. Mhm.
Yes, exactly. It's about the discussion. It's not about agreement. It's just the ability to talk it through, hear the perspective, go back and forth. Like that dialogue is so
Mhm.
special. Exactly. Yes. And there will be no room for any of that stuff. So if someone pays to join the course and they're doing that, I reserve the right to choose who's there or not if policies are not being followed. So that would not be tolerated in the group. So again, I'm going to be very protective of that space to make sure that that is not happening, and I will deal with anything right away. So it really will be a place to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Almost forgot to ask this question because I was getting a little ahead of myself. Okay. Do you think women directors of horror films are finally getting the respect that they deserve?
So I think this goes back to what we were talking about with Black women in horror, that I think visibility, yes, but I think we're working towards like the full respect, because I do still see it kind of playing out the same way, that you might have a female horror director does a great job, everyone's happy, movie does well, and it's just kind of about that and contained to that. And maybe people aren't saying globally, let's do more of this. People might be more willing, which is wonderful. I mean, those are trailblazers, right? They help for the next
Mm,
person coming along. But I don't know that we have a pervasive view like, yes, this is awesome, this is amazing. Because if we think about it, even thinking about female horror directors, the fact that we're asking the question means that they have not been integrated enough, that we don't need to ask that question.
yeah, because
Yeah.
when I take a look at Nina DaCosta, and she did a very great job with the
Ah,
Candyman remake.
yes. I adore her. Yes.
Yeah. But one of the prime examples I give is Mary Lambert. She did a great job in filming the Pet Cemetery film, but
Yes.
she never gets credit for it. It's
No,
like when you take a look at anything when it comes to Pet Cemetery, we think about Stephen King
yep,
and we think
yep,
about the actors in the film, but nothing
right,
about Mary Lambert. It's like,
right.
when are we going to give Mary Lambert some love? I mean, she did direct the film. She
Yes,
did a great job in
yes,
the film. So
amazing.
let's give her some credit.
Right, and we have to wonder, like, does gender play a role in that? If she were a man, would that have been different? Would her name have been out there more? Would more people be talking and wanting her, and her fault? So we also have to think about how that plays into it, right? But incredible movie, and that's sad. You're absolutely right, but that's reflecting kind of where
Mhm.
we're still kind of working. I know that was further back, but still kind of working to really make it just this is just how it is versus something special. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a new question I'm going to be asking this
Mm.
year for women in horror. Do you think we'll ever have a female character on the same verge as Freddy, Jason, and Michael?
Oh. Hmm. I
Because
would say, yeah.
because we have our final girls, we have the one-off,
Right.
but we don't
Right.
have a woman villain in the same vein as, whether it's Freddy, Jason, Michael, Chucky, Pinhead. They're
Yes.
all males. Art the Clown, they're all
Yeah.
males, but we don't have a
Mhm.
female one.
Right. So I think it's possible someday. Are we ready for it? As far as we have come, maybe not. We're not there yet.
Mm,
Right. So
mm,
again, reflecting
on,
where we're at societally with it. Like it's gonna, that's it. So right. So that's, and also we have to think about time too. Like it took, well, I mean, art kind of blew up in a shorter amount of time, but for many
mm,
of them, it was like, they were given the benefit of a long stretch of time to be
mm,
able to build up, this icon status. So I think it's possible. I wouldn't see it happening. Like I would be shocked if it happened this year. I could see
mm,
it happening in the future. But again, I think that's still the societal stuff playing out in the genre, right? Are we ready for it? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But as a whole, are we ready? Especially when we think about the backlash that we see, for
mm,
all, and like you're describing in all those places, oh, women playing this and all of that. I think that then becomes the dominant view. And perhaps filmmakers are also considering all of that and weary of trying to create something like that. So I hope someday, I just don't, it's sad to say, I don't know that we're there yet. I would love to see
yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
would love to see it too because
Mhm.
I'm talking to myself because I was thinking about this last year,
Mhm.
and we did a segment on this live stream that I have with some YouTube friends of mine called the Horror Hangout live stream, and we
Okay.
discussed about will we ever see a woman horror icon in the same
Mhm.
vein? Probably not as popular as Freddie, Jason, or Michael, but
Yeah.
at least getting to that top
Something
10
up
where,
exactly, something more
when
than
she's
we're
at
seeing now.
least it with Letterface, Chucky, Pinhead, and all the
Yes, at
other
least that
horror
tier.
icons.
At least that
She's
tier,
that
right,
that
exactly,
that
right.
there.
Yes.
Uh,
That is the hope. That's what we work towards. That's why we have these conversations to really talk about it, educate people about the importance of women in horror, because I think if we recognize the importance of women of horror, if that becomes more integrated into the conversation, the willingness and accepting of a female character like that would get better. So I think all that we're doing, even this conversation, all that you're doing is part of us eventually getting there.
mm. All right, my final question for tonight will be if you could write your own horror film, what type of horror film would it be and what type and what subgenre?
Ooh, yes. So that's a hard one. I always think about like movies and what I would do. And I have a lot of critiques of movies that exist. And I have a lot of notes that I would give to screenwriters and things like that. So I imagine, I was kind of thinking about this, particularly because it's women in horror. So I have a couple of ideas that always float through my mind. But I was thinking of one that's not traditional horror, but kind of more along the veins of what I like to analyze. And it's a world, so we're seeing a dual perspective. So one perspective is a world where it is just men, and that's
Mm,
it. And then we also then have the perspective, and we're seeing kind of simultaneously what's happening in a world with just women. And then we're seeing like different events, like how it's playing out. So if a decision needs to be made, how is it playing out here? And then we could see the contrast for how is it playing out there. And then I
mhm,
think what we might see too in that is all of the unintended consequences of something like that. Obviously, this is a world where we don't have to worry about reproduction. So just to say that, all those
mhm.
technical pieces I haven't worked out because I'm not really writing it, but I just think it would be so interesting to fully imagine that. Like, there's a lot of conversation online between all genders about what that would look like if so and so was in here or they weren't there. I would love to see how does that play out, and would it be scarier than we would imagine? What are the things that we wouldn't expect that would come up as a result? So I think that's particularly around this topic. That's one idea that I've kind of thought about. Not the traditional, but maybe I hope it's not like maybe elevated horror. I don't know what I would call it. But that's
Well,
kind of
no,
what
it
was
is an interesting premise. You know, you
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised someone might be thinking about that right now for a
Oh
horror
yeah.
film.
And that's what that right, exactly. That's what I always imagine, right? Someone's gonna someday kind of come up with something like that. Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, Professor Captain, I really appreciate you coming on. You are a fantastic guest, very informative. Tell the people where they can find you once again.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. So it's the horror professor, but professor is just PROF, so just shortened. So can find me there. Hopefully, we can put the link to my Instagram and maybe the online course in the show notes. But that is the best way to reach me, or the horror professor at Gmail is also a good option. But yes, couple
Yes,
ways to reach me.
yes, I'll definitely have the link for your Instagram in the description
Great.
box below. I want to thank you very much for coming on Women in Horror.
Great. Thank you so
And
much.
once
Yes.
and thank you very much. And once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember horror rules. Good night, everyone, and please stay safe out there.
Yes.